a sequel, I suppose, to one of my earlier videos. I did a video a few weeks back, 10 underrated movies. You guys really seem to like that video. And there's actually a couple things I ended up leaving off there, and I think I kind of want to do in the future, maybe underrated TV shows or underrated anime as well. That could be cool, because I have some really good ideas for both those as well, even underrated actors and actresses. Before we do that, I thought of 7 more films that in my opinion are underrated. Now these ones are ones that are perhaps a little bit more mainstream than the ones I covered last time, but ones that I feel like either did not leave the cultural mark that I feel they sort of deserve to have left, or ones that did but have since faded a little bit from the public conscious. Okay, and we're gonna start off with 1979's The Warriors. The Warriors is one of my favorite movies of all time. This is a movie, this is like one of the first DVDs I got. I want to say I was like 11 or 12 years old, and I had this tiny little TV in my room with a built-in DVD player, and I had like 2 or 3 DVDs, and the TV wasn't hooked up to satellite or cable or anything. It didn't have an antenna, so it was literally just to watch DVDs, not even, Blu-rays weren't even out yet at the time. And so I got actually the first 2 movies on this list were the first 2 DVDs I had, basically the only 2 movies I was watching all the time, but this is kind of the first movie I picked out for myself. It wasn't a suggestion from my parents, it was something I saw it sitting on the shelf, and I was like, that looks really cool, so I picked it up. And it's The Warriors of 1979. This movie, I feel like there's been a little bit, there was a really good Rockstar video game, which is like still, I think, one of the best video games Rockstar's ever done. And there's little things, right, that you still see some people referencing the baseball gang. What are they? Because there was the Warriors, of course. There was the Rogues. There was the Riffs. There's the Turnbull ACs. And what is the Baseball Furies? Like, you see them referenced a little bit in different pieces of media. But I feel like a lot of people who even make references to it, or even do the Warriors come out and play thing, because I think for a little while that was something that away crowds would do against the Golden State Warriors. Warriors come out and play. But I question, do they know what that's from beyond the scene? If they've seen the movie, right? I feel like, I don't know, it just feels like not a ton of people have seen the movie. In 79, so it's obviously not extremely recent. It's super cold, it has good reviews, and it has, like I said, the atmosphere in this movie, that opening sequence in the film where it's dark and you get that very like bang, bum bum, bum, bum bum, and it's like completely black, save for the Coney Island Ferris wheel, and you see the New York City subway coming in, and you start having these cuts, people talking about Cyrus, you see some of the different gangs. Like, the opening of this movie is, in my opinion, one of the greatest openings to any film of all time. It immediately puts you in the atmosphere. Now, if you've never seen this movie, do not, and I cannot stress this enough, do not watch the director's cut. will vouch for the director's cut. I'll be like, okay, they're better. You know, Blade Runner is my favorite film of all time. The director's cut is the best way to watch Blade Runner. The theatrical cut of The Warriors is the best way to watch The Warriors. Unfortunately, I don't know how it is anymore, but for a while, the director's cut was the only way to buy The Warriors. I haven't checked streaming services. I'm lucky enough I have the original DVD from 2005. That is the theatrical cut when they finally printed it on DVD. It was originally on Laserdisc only, I think. I don't think this movie got a VHS print, except for some bootleg VHSs, because I have a Laserdisc of The Warriors, because I have a small Laserdisc collection with some really interesting stuff in there. And then the DVD I bought when I was a kid, but I think it's ever since 2007, so there's only that 2-year window where you could buy a DVD of the theatrical cut. It's only been the director's cut available. Do not watch that version of the movie. It's really bad. And this is, in my opinion, this is like one of the best indie films of all time. Like, obviously people talk about like Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction up there, Clerks, we talk about indie films. But The Warriors, this was made for $4 million. And it has, like I said, the atmosphere of this film is you're immediately transported into 1970s New York City. It's gritty, it's grimy, but there's sort of this like urban fantasy element behind the whole thing. Like it's like real unrealism. It's very fantasy realism, I think is the term. Very good. Only cost them $4 million to make. I think I might have already mentioned that. And the soundtrack to this film, Barry Dave Orzon, Joe Walsh, In the City, bum 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 bum. Just the soundtrack to this film, the atmosphere of this film, one of my favorite movies of all time, and I think it is criminally underrated. The Warriors. Next up, in this movie I'm about to talk about, this is the second DVD I had in my 2 DVD collection there as a 11, 12-year-old. This is to this day still, this is my most watched movie of all time, and this is like a comfort movie for me. I just recently watched it with my now fiance. And it just took me right back. I can quote this movie beginning to end. I've probably seen this movie more than 100 times, because this used to be, I'd put this on to fall asleep, because I cannot sleep in a dark room, and I cannot sleep in a quiet room. Now that I'm older, obviously I share a bed with somebody, I sleep with headphones on. I have a small set of string lights near my side of the bed, but I can't sleep in a dark, quiet room. And The Warriors was always a little bit too elevated for me. I would not be able to fall asleep watching The Warriors when the other option was Napoleon Dynamite from 2004. I'd lay in bed, turn the movie on, I'd wake up in the morning, and the DVD menu would be playing. The music from the DVD menu of Napoleon Dynamite is permanently seared into my brain. This is another, in my opinion, indie darling as a filmmaker. Napoleon Dynamite is so inspiring, and they made this for $400,000. He filmed it all in Idaho. He used locations from a little town in Idaho. Oh, my light just died. That's unfortunate. Okay, the lighting is not going to be great here. Hold on, can I maybe turn on my phone? No, that's not fantastic. Yeah, my little light down there died. I haven't charged in a little while. That's unfortunate. Yeah, they made this movie for $400,000, and now there's this movie did have its moment. Like, Spencer's Gifts might still to this day be selling Vote for Pedro shirts. I don't really know. And like Tina, you fat lard, and like, this did have some cultural staying power. But again, kind of similar to when people referenced the Warriors, it was always kind of like, have you seen Napoleon Dynamite? Especially now, it's like I feel like people now, like teenagers now in 2024, they'll go back and watch, the classics. They'll go back, they'll watch. There's lots of movies in the early 2000s, late 90s that they're still watching. They're still relevant, but like, is Napoleon Dynamite still relevant? Because like for me, Napoleon Dynamite, Juno, Scott Pilgrim, those were like huge cultural movies, super bad. But I feel like none of those movies really have stayed the test of time. And Juno especially, I think, is extremely outdated. And I think Superbad doesn't resonate with the sensibilities of Gen Z like it did with millennials. Napoleon Dynamite feels like a classic movie, and the type of humor in it feels like it should be popular or relevant to kids today, younger teenagers today, and the style of humor you see, like across social media, TikTok, things like that. It's very irreverent. And there's so many great moments in Napoleon Dynamite. I can't even list them. But what I love about Napoleon Dynamite is, at the end of the day, it's like a feel-good film, and it's very, it just has this very comfortable, warm feeling. You launched John Heater's career here. I actually met John Heater before. He lives in Portland, and like, I've met him in person once, but also I know multiple people who've just like seen John Heater walking or driving around downtown Portland. Yeah, just such a great, quotable movie, and a movie I feel like does not get mentioned. Those 2000s comedies. There's one more down this list. I feel like it doesn't get brought up, and among the list of 2000s comedies that primarily is dominated, it seems, by Will Ferrell comedies. Okay, next up, a movie from just the year before in 2003. And we have Open Range. This, for my money, is one of the best westerns of all time, but I feel like it never gets talked about as such. In my opinion, you could put this right up there with like Tombstone, the Fistful of Dollars trilogy, all this stuff. I'm not saying it's necessarily better than any of those films, but I think it belongs on the same echelon as those movies. One of the most underrated westerns. I think part of the reason is, unfortunately, this was kind of coming at the wind down of the western genre. This movie only made $60 million on a budget of $22 million. You had a lot of big name actors: Kevin Costner, Robert Duvall, Michael Gambon playing the villain. And funny enough, you have a young Diego Luna in one of his earliest roles. Now obviously quite famous for Star Wars, but back in 2003, this is going to be one of Diego Luna's first roles. But yeah, it was like this and 3:10 to Yuma, and there's a couple other things around this time, but none of them really performed well, and I kind of felt like that was the death of the western genre. There's been a few little here and there, but I'm a big fan of westerns. It's always been one of my goals to make a western short film, as difficult as they are, though, because you need the time-accurate clothing and props and horses and things like that. But you have a star-studded cast in this movie. The gunfight at the end of Open Range is, in my opinion, one of, if not the best gunfight in a western film. The audio mixing alone, the guns sound super impactful. They're super deep and bassy, like a black powder cartridge would be. After World War II, the type of the ammunition changed, and it's a lot higher pitched. It doesn't have that deep thud like pre-World War II ammunition had. It's very reminiscent of like a Michael Mann film almost, and yeah. 2003 Open Range, extremely underrated. don't know if it is my favorite Western, but it's definitely one of my favorite Westerns. Personally, I like Open Range better than Tombstone. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly is my favorite Western, but I think Open Range is right up there with that. And then maybe The Hateful Eight as well. I really enjoyed that, even though it's not a traditional Western. Alright, now we have another comedy from 2004. So first was Napoleon Dynamite, but the other 2004 comedy I want to talk about is Dodgeball. And again, Dodgeball did kind of have its cultural touchstone moment. Like, people still say, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. And then dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge. Like, things like that still kind of get discussed a little bit. But again, when you're talking about the best early 2000s comedies, people will bring up Superbad. People will bring up, like, Anchorman, Talladega Nights, Step Brothers, all the Will Ferrell comedies. But I feel like Dodgeball doesn't really get mentioned, similar to Napoleon Dynamite doesn't get mentioned. I feel like I've seen people reference Blades of Glory more often than either of these films, and which in my opinion wasn't very good, but funny enough it does have John Heater. But Dodgeball, you have, it's a pretty good ensemble cast. Of course, it's being led by Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller, who have great chemistry in this. Ben Stiller has some all-time lines. Vince Vaughn's kind of playing it straight the whole time. You have a good ensemble cast with interesting characters, a really simple, funny plot. Like, it's one of the tightest early 2000s comedies, in my opinion. Very simple premise, good execution. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It has a good scope. Like, I've always enjoyed Dodgeball. It's always been one of my favorite comedies from this era, but I feel like it frequently is not discussed among some of the other films from this time. And this is a little bit later. We're getting into 2008 now. I'm not gonna say this is one of my favorite movies of all time, because that's definitely a stretch, but I really enjoy this movie. I've seen it tons of times. Well, I've probably seen this movie 6, 7, 8 times. But it's a really good movie. It's well paced. It has a great cast. And that's Get Smart. Get Smart from 2008. Now, I grew up, okay? I was a weird kid. I need you guys to understand. I was very introverted. I did not really have friends my age as a kid. I am the youngest of 3. My 2 brothers were already teenagers by the time I was born. I spent a lot of time hanging out with my parents and my grandparents and my aunts and uncles. I have to quickly pause. So that kind of shaped my taste in things and what I was watching, listening to, etc. The original Get Smart TV show, I grew up watching it, and I loved it. It's still a TV show I really enjoy watching. I'll still, I think the full series is on YouTube. Every so often I'll just throw on an episode. If I'm just working, if I'm sitting down and I'm on a second screen or something. Maxwell Smart is one of my favorite fictional characters, and the Get Smart theme song is iconic. Dun da da, dun dun da da, dun da da, da. Missed it by that much, all that stuff. And they did do a Get Smart movie with the original cast way back in the day, but in 2008 they did a Get Smart movie. And this is way past when the show was on the air, but I wasn't complaining. And I really enjoy this movie. You compare it to some of the other, notably, I guess, Johnny English is kind of the other, comedy James Bond, right? I like this a lot better than Johnny English. And, this movie, Yeah, Steve Carell, of course, is Maxwell Smart. You have Anne Hathaway, you have Alan Arkin, and then Dwayne The Rock Johnson playing a bad guy, which he does not really do anymore. And it's a love letter to the show. It really respects the source material, but it's very funny as a comedy. It has good action set pieces. It has a good plot. It's well paced. And it surprised me that this movie wasn't more popular or didn't get a sequel. And a lot of people I see kind of rate this movie low. It only has like a 67% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not saying this is like an Oscar winner, but it's a fun, good movie in my opinion that deserves a lot more love. It's a fun, good movie in my opinion that deserves a lot more love than it's gotten. Alright, two more. Next up, this one you guys might disagree with me on. But Drive from 2011. Now, Nightcrawler is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's in my top 10 favorite films of all time, which I did that in a video way back towards the beginning of my channel. Drive is very similar to Nightcrawler. This movie, obviously, it's like the literally me thing, right, with Ryan Gosling. And this is kind of like this era of Ryan Gosling. It's like this, and what was the other one? It's like God something. No, but it's literally, this movie's just like all atmosphere. It's lighting, atmosphere, camera work. You know, it's very atmospheric, I guess is the only term. And you have that amazing soundtrack by Kavinsky. Night Calls become iconic. But I almost feel like the memes around this movie, like the scorpion jacket, the soundtrack, like all the tropes coming out of Drive, have overshadowed how good of a movie it is. You have an amazing cast. Ryan Gosling, obviously, Bryan Cranston. And it's a really good movie. It's a slow burn a bit, and it's one of those things you really have to kind of pay attention to. But I feel like more people talk about the memes about this movie, or like I said, like the Ryan Gosling thing, than actually have watched this movie. Because it is really good. It's captivating. It's atmospheric. I think Nightcrawler is better. Like I put these movies, I put them very similar. Nightcrawler and Drive. I think Nightcrawler is better, has a better story, but I feel like Drive at this point is underrated. And I feel like some people even hate on it, but they're hating on it because of the memes and not because of the movie itself. And finally, the seventh film. This is a movie that I was super excited for when it came out. I went out and saw it opening day with an amazing crowd. And that is 2017's The Disaster Artist. Being the type of person I am, being terminally online throughout my youth and my teenage years, I've been well aware of Tommy Wiseau in The Room for years and years and years. I've been a subscriber of Red Letter Media since the original Plinkett Phantom Menace reviews, so I'm very glued into these bad movies, these B movies like The Room, Neil Breen, all these things. I'm very well versed in all that. So when Greg Sestero released his novel, The Disaster Artist, I bought that. I actually bought it. Greg was doing there was an event at Powell's Books in Portland that Greg was there, and he read an excerpt from the book, answered some questions, things like that. And that's where I got it, and I read the book. And then the movie came out, and I was super excited. Saw it opening day. And I don't know what it is. It feels like this movie just didn't make the impact I expected it to, or a lot of people expected it to. It feels like The Disaster Artist came out in 2017, and then, like, the moment was gone or something. Like, people were no longer talking about The Room. Like, that kind of faded out of public consciousness. Like, you haven't really heard anything crazy about Tommy Wiseau in a while. You know, because, like, I know, you know, people were like, flocking to his website, buying, like, the Tommy Wiseau underwear, all that stuff for a while. But it feels like he's just kind of faded out of public consciousness. The Room's kind of faded out of public consciousness. And as a consequence of that, The Disaster Artist, it feels like it maybe just came out a little bit too late or something. I don't know, because I know this has been in production for, I think it was in production for years and years or something. And I thought it was really good. I thought it told the story of Tommy Wiseau and Greg. And it didn't do it in a mean-spirited way. It didn't harp on him. It didn't lampoon him. And it had a very heartfelt, sincere message in there as well. And I really liked the film. I've seen it a couple of times. But like I said, I don't know, it kind of just feels like it came out and then everybody stopped caring. And it was like, yeah, we're done with The Room now. And even like, I think part of it is because Tommy Wiseau is kind of in on the joke now. Like, he did Best Fiends, and I think he had another movie with Greg that he was, I don't know if that ever came out. Big Shark, Best Fiends, Samurai. Yeah, I thought he had a trailer for something else coming out, but yeah, because if you search up Tommy Wiseau and you click on like news articles, January 29th, it's a review of Big Shark. And then before that, it's an article on August 22nd of 2023. Then June of 2023. And that June article is actually questioning if The Room is still relevant. It's saying there's, you know, worse movies now. October 2023. And it's just, yeah. It feels like people don't care anymore. You look at Big Shark. I think that's the one that, he was doing with Greg again. There's a trailer. But I don't think it's come out now. Okay, yeah, in 2021, Greg's Estero. Wait, did it actually come out? I don't even know, because apparently, release date April 2nd, okay, and then, like, I feel like nobody cared about The Neighbors. Yeah, I don't know, maybe Tommy Wiseau, his moment is gone, and the movie came out at a bad time, I don't know, but that would be my final pick for underrated movies. You know, if you've never given it a try, I would watch The Disaster Artist. But anyway, guys, that is 7 more underrated movies in my opinion. Let me know if you thought about these films, if you've seen any of these, if you agree or disagree with any of these selections. Let me know in the comments down below. But if you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this almost every single day. Until next time, guys. Bye bye.